Hello, I'm the Reverend Bonnie Dlott, your sabbatical minister. I invite you now to grab that cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable, take a few deep breaths, and join me in this present moment. Our opening words this morning come from a poem by Robert Walsh called Fault Line. When the great plate slips and the earth shivers and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the restive earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. The Prelude now prepares us for worship.
words for our chalice lighting this morning are by Martha Kirby Capo. For some, the chalice cup is a communion cup, freely offered to all who would seek the greater truth. Others see the circle of fellowship in its embracing sides, the sacred hoop of its rim, the ambient energy cradled in its basin, the abiding, grounded strength of its pedestal. May all be lit by the fire of spiritual energy. So too may we each be bathed in the glow of our shared truth, multifaceted and radiant.
Welcome to this service of worship. It's so good to be connecting with you this morning, and I hope to see many of you at the Zoom virtual coffee hour after this presentation, which can be accessed through a Zoom link that I hope was included in the same email that contained the link to this presentation. So I'll start that meeting probably around noon on Sunday, and I'll be available until about 1, so I hope to see many of your smiling faces. We are a liberal religious community in Sonoma County, celebrating life, empowering people, caring for one another, and helping to build a better world. Our theme for this month is wisdom, and today I'll be speaking about the wisdom found in nature. And now let's do what we do and sing our UU Principles song together.
One, each person is worthwhile, to be kind in all you do. 3, let's help each other grow. 4, keep searching for the true. 5, each person has a say. 6, work for a peaceful world. 7, the web of life's the way that will bring us back to you, 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 you.
Good morning. I'm Jen Freese, your Director of Religious Education, and I'm out here in my backyard with Owen. Owen, I'm looking at some things from nature, and I'm noticing that even though your flower, even though we're cooped up inside right now, we actually can still get outside a good amount, and I'm noticing that spring is really happening. What do you have there?
A purple flower.
A purple flower. Who did you think of when you picked that purple flower?
Of Brenna.
You thought of Brenna, who's Dylan's little sister, right?
Yeah.
She's 2, and what's her favorite color?
Purple.
Purple, yeah. I have some jasmine here. If you smell it.
I have a clogged nose.
If you smell
I
it.
kind of smell it.
It smells really good. This is one of my favorite flowers from when I was growing up, and it always made me remember that spring was on its way. And I just wanted to talk to you about the importance of getting outside lately, and that there's nature outside and there's wisdom in nature. Did you know that there's wisdom in nature?
Yeah.
Do you think there is?
Yeah, of course.
What makes you think that?
Because like I read a magazine all about trees, and on one page it says that they can talk to each other through channels in their roots.
Wow, so trees can really talk to each other?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So nature has wisdom, and one thing that's wise to do right now is just to get outside as much as possible.
Like
Did
this-
you know that the parks are still open right now?
Yeah, but we can't go on the play structures.
We can't, but can we go hiking right now?
Yes.
And can we go in a backyard if we have it?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
and
also,
can-
this Buddha is smiling because he's outside.
This Buddha is smiling because he's outside. This week, I hope that you get outside too and enjoy spring that's here. Oh, and let's go ahead and tell everyone who we are. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We do that? Okay. We are Unitarian Universalists, people of the open minds, the loving hearts, and the helping hands.
As you can see, if you take a look at the emails coming in from our email lists, we are a very active congregation, even when we are sheltering in place. Many meetings and gatherings will be happening on the Zoom platform in the next few days and weeks. And since our situation seems to change every day, keep an eye out for announcements that will come to you by email. And remember, again, at noon on Sunday, I'm going to try to hold a Zoom coffee hour from noon to 1, and you should look for the link for that coffee hour, an invitation to join, in the email where you found the link for this service. Generosity is a core spiritual value for most of us, and our congregation, as you know, is supported by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends. In these uncertain and anxious days, please remember that UUCSR still needs your continued financial support. So there's several ways you can fulfill your pledge. You can sign up for autopay on the UUCSR website by going to uusantarosa.org and clicking on the Give tab. You can also sign up for recurring payments on your bank's bill pay, and if you do that, you should include the word pledge in your memo line. You can send a check with pledge written in the memo line to UUCSR at 547 Mendocino Avenue, Santa Rosa, California, 95401. Or you can send a payment by text, and these payments go to our Share the Plate participants. I want you to know that the board has committed to paying all of our staff through the month of March, whether or not they are able to come in and do their work. The board felt strongly that this was the right thing to do, and Reverend Dara and I agreed. It's your generosity that allows us to do this, so please, if you are able, send in your pledge check, make a donation, do whatever you can, and of course, if you aren't able to do this at this time, we do understand. In that spirit, please join me in saying the offering dedication if you are able. To the work of creating beloved community within and beyond our walls, we dedicate these offerings and ourselves. In just a moment, our lay chaplain of the day will be discussing the milestones for this week. Following that will be a pastoral prayer by Reverend Dara. And if you would like to light a candle of joy for a joy or concern or a sorrow this week, please feel free to do so during or after the prayer.
I'm Paula Hammet, one of your lay chaplains. Milestones is a place where we share our joys and sorrows with the congregation. If you have something you'd like to share, please send it to me, and we will send out a compilation of the milestones via the focus list on Sundays. We've decided not to share the milestones online due to privacy considerations, but we will also add them to the milestones book. If you have a private issue to discuss, you may contact me, and a member of our pastoral care team will get back to you as soon as possible. In reading the milestones this week, it's very clear that shelter in place is particularly difficult for those who are separated from loved ones by distance or because their loved ones are in hospitals or other care facilities and they can't physically be with them. I'd like to envelop them in a blanket of love and support as they struggle to stay connected through these difficult times. A reminder to you all, you are not alone. Reach out to your beloved faith community so that we can all help each other. May we hold each other in our hearts. Thank you very much.
I'm Reverend Dara Olandt, Assistant Minister. I invite you now into an experience of prayerful reflection. Amidst the swirl in the inner life and the outer life, may this be a time for centering and reconnection to yourself and to others. I invite you to make any adjustments that you might need to now to bring yourself more relative ease in the space, whether it's adjusting how you are seated right now or lying down, just making sure you are as comfortable as possible. You might close your eyes or bring your eyes to a gentle gaze in the room. And I'll offer us these words. Spirit of love, Spirit of life, source of abundant strength and hope, known by so many names, sweet mystery beyond human comprehension. Allow us to gentle ourselves this day, that we might reconnect to our own deeper selves and to that which is greater and deeper than any single one of us alone. Let us offer ourselves compassion this day, and let us offer a sense of care and compassion to all those in our sweet community who are in need of solace or support. We remember those who are separated from loved ones, those grappling with nervousness, anxiety, fear. We bring into our hearts and minds those on the front lines providing care and medical support. We remember those in our community who are saying goodbye to loved ones, or preparing to say goodbye to loved ones who are in the processes of passing from this life. Holy source of strength and power, let us also remember the deep joys in our lives, the bright spots in our days. Let us give thanks for the small and beautiful. Let us give thanks for the resilience of the natural world. May that resilience be mirrored inside of us as well. Let us remember how deeply connected we are in this magnificent web of life. May we go gentle on ourselves and one another this day and all days. May we feel our feelings and grieve our losses. And let us also hold a great deal of hope and a sense of appreciation and gratitude for all the many blessings that remain and are yet unfolding in this life, For all this we say, thank you, amen, and blessed be. We will now enter 5 whole minutes of quiet meditation, beginning and ending with the sound of the singing bowl.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
I love the physical environment of Sonoma County. I love walking around my beloved spring lake, absorbing the natural world. I delight in the heron on the log, tall and still as a statue. A love-matched pair of swans moving tranquilly through the still water. The majesty and power of a red-tailed hawk gliding effortlessly in the currents of the wind. I love the soothing sound of water lapping gently on the shore. I'm awed by the beautiful vista of the rolling meadowed and oak-studded hills that rise almost directly behind my home. I'm so grateful I live in such a beautiful place. But I might not have been so deeply able to appreciate this place were it not for a profound experience I had just over 20 years ago. I joined 21 other people for 7 days at a beautiful ranch on a river in the hill country of Texas. For the most part, we were strangers to each other, all with diverse life experiences from many faith traditions and no tradition. During that time, I entered into deep self-inquiry through silence, meditation, and fasting. I opened myself up to relationship with the sacred through hours of dancing and singing as the Spirit led me. Late one morning, sitting under a small tree, I suddenly became extremely sleepy and lay down right there on the ground to take a nap. I hardly have words for what I experienced when I woke up. I opened my eyes and looked into a brilliant blue sky with absolute wonder and amazement. It was as if I'd never seen the real beauty of it before that moment. I saw a nest of little baby birds and felt such deep love for these precious little creatures. And then, as naturally as breathing, I found myself becoming the baby birds, heads thrown back, mouths wide open, waiting to be fed. I became the sky. I became the clouds. I didn't walk on the grass. I became the grass. There was a flood of knowing. I was in the heart of profound intelligence. All of existence stood before me in totality. I was infused with a current of aliveness and peace. It was so blissful that there is no analogy within ordinary experience. I identify as a mystic Christian, and the very best of the Christian tradition still feeds me. For this reason, when I first tried to find words to talk about my experience, it came in mystical biblical language and metaphor. I understood for the first time what Jesus meant when he said, "The whole earth is filled with the glory of God." I understood what the Apostle Paul meant when he said, "We will cease to see God in part, but will see God face to face and know God fully, even as we are known." In those moments, all images, concepts and constructs of God fell away, and there was only the mystery of an ineffable presence. I was in the heart of wisdom itself. There is not an interconnecting web between all of creation. There is a complete oneness and unity in all creation. My experience of what is often called unitive consciousness slowly faded over the next few weeks. I've never again had such a deep mystical experience, and I probably never will. Unfortunately, I'm rarely conscious these days of the deep wisdom of the cosmos, the stuff of which I am. But having been blessed with a mere glimpse of ultimate reality forever changed my understanding of the nature of life. I've been brought back to the memory of that mystical experience in the last few days. Like the entire world, our congregation is practicing social distancing. It feels so unnatural to stand 6 feet away from you, not to shake your hand or hug you. But after last Sunday's beautiful virtual service, I realized, in some ways, I feel more connected to all of you right now than when we're physically together in Sunday service. It's a deep, energetic connection. And I know in the very heart of me that it's impossible for us to be truly separate from one another. We are ultimately one in divine wisdom.
Beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Ever since I discovered Unitarian Universalism, I've been intrigued by the different ways we come to understand our individual sense of spirituality. And when I use the word spirituality, I mean the sense we have that there is something outside of ourselves, something much larger than we are. This could be God or spirit of life or love, or, as I have heard described by you, the great big thing. Today I'd like to tell you about how I came to understand the great big thing and how the natural world offers me with ultimate wisdom and meaning. There is an old Hasidic tale about the child of a rabbi who used to wander in the woods. A lot like I did when I was a kid. At first, his father let him wander, but over time he started to get a little concerned because, of course, the woods were dangerous and the father didn't really know what might be lurking there. So one day he took his son aside and he said, "You know, I've noticed that each day you walk in the woods and I wonder, why do you go there?" And the boy said, "Well, I go there to find God." "That's a very good thing," the father replied, "but I'm glad you're searching for God. But my child, don't you know that God is the same everywhere?" "Yes," answered the boy, "but I am not." And I am not either, is what I've discovered. I grew up in the East Bay Hills outside of Moraga, back behind St. Mary's College, pretty much surrounded by an oak forest. My father chose to build our house where he did because it offered so much privacy. When I was a child, I had to walk about a half mile or so down a narrow, winding dirt road each morning to the place where the school bus would pick me up, and then I would retrace my steps each afternoon. As I walked, I would take in all the sights around me, all the oak trees, the ferns, the wildflowers. I listened to the music of the birds and the creek that ran beside the road, and sometimes I'd climb down the bank to look for salamanders and tadpoles. And I watched the seasons go by. That was quite profound for me. Although I was alone in these walks, I never felt alone. I always felt at home in the woods. I didn't really feel that way at school, and although my home was safe and loving, with 5 siblings, it was pretty much madness all the time. The woods were peaceful, and I felt that I belonged there. I felt something else too, something that I couldn't articulate at the time. It's still sometimes hard to communicate. When I was alone out there in the woods, I would feel as if my soul expanded until it was big enough to contain the trees and plants and all the creatures there. In those moments, I felt so physically connected to something, I didn't know what, but it felt sacred. It felt like some sacred spirit of the woods, and that experience was profound. It always left me feeling calm and grounded and full of compassion for myself and for others. It was not until I was in my maybe early 30s that I understood my experience in the wood as something mystical, something even religious. When I was a child, religion was something very different than being in the woods. It meant sitting in church and maybe reading the Bible. God was somewhere up in the clouds watching me, knowing everything I did and even everything I thought. I reluctantly abandoned that version of God and religion shortly after high school, and I say reluctantly because so many things about the Christian church we attended appealed to me. I loved the weekly ritual of gathering in community, the encouragement to help one another, the value of hope, the importance of compassion, and the power of forgiveness. But some of the theology I was taught at that particular church, it didn't ring true for me, and it didn't speak the truth about the world that I knew and loved, a world that was full of glorious diversity. My lack of spiritual practice or community it wasn't really a problem for me until I was a married mother of 2 working on a graduate degree at UCLA. Shortly after the birth of my daughter, my second child, I fell into a depression. I wondered how I could feel so bad when I had everything that I thought I wanted. I had a good marriage, 2 beautiful, healthy children, and the career in cell biology that I had worked really hard for. But there was something very wrong, something missing. The birth of my children had forced me to think about meaningfulness. And I wondered, what was I going to tell them about the meaning of life? I thought about it. I thought hard, and what I came up with was something like, if you work hard and follow the rules, you can make money and buy things. Wow, was that what I really believed? I didn't know. I knew that wasn't right, but I didn't know how to change it. I didn't know what it was, and so I became despondent. Shortly after that realization, during a visit to Northern California, I experienced a moment of enlightenment while picking berries in a field with my children just after a rainfall. We were in Watsonville, coastal city. It was early morning, and the mist was rising off the fields as we made our way out, and I breathed deeply that scent of wet earth, which is so intoxicating. I felt the warm sunshine, and I heard the birds calling from the trees. I watched my son pick the raspberries with absolute wonder. He was a city child and put them in his mouth, fist over fist, obviously delighted by them. Suddenly, I sensed the presence of that sacred spirit again. I was transported back to my childhood, walking in the forest near my home. My soul started to expand, and I felt connected again to the great big thing. My sadness vanished, and I felt calm and grounded and full of gratitude. And in that flash, the cause of my depression became clear. In Los Angeles, where I had lived for the last 8 years, the ground was paved over for miles and miles. There was nothing there that wasn't planted deliberately. I spent every day inside a concrete building. I was exhausted from working and caring for my children. I had no time for God, who was waiting for me out in the fields and the mountains. Without that sacred spirit, without that great big thing, my life had lost joy and meaning. The pieces began to fall into place. I'm forever indebted to public television because around that time, they were showing a film. It was a trilogy about women's spirituality made in Canada. And in the trilogy, they included some interviews with some eco-feminist theologians such as Starhawk. And I watched, dumbfounded, open-mouthed, as she described my experience of connecting to the divine through nature. Looking back, it's really kind of hard to believe I felt so alone in this, but I did. I never articulated my experience, nor had I heard it described by anyone else. There wasn't any Google search at the time, so now I had a name for it: earth-based spirituality. I immediately started doing research and discovered that earth-based spirituality, or earth-based mysticism, describes the experience of finding the sacred in nature and sensing one to be a part of nature and discovering ultimate meaning in that relationship. It's different than just appreciating nature. It's an experience of awe and wonder and reverence. In short, nature feels religious. So then, where does wisdom come into the picture? How can an experience of the sacred in nature translate to wisdom? Well, when I am in nature, like this child in the story I told you earlier, I am simply not the same person. I become open-hearted and connected and joyful. When I am out in nature, I see a much bigger, interconnected picture of the world. And this offers me a perspective that helps me to understand the difference between things that are important and things that are not. I come back from my backpacking trips feeling so calm, so full of purpose, and inspired with generosity and compassion. I actually have a feeling in my gut after I get back from these trips, and it lasts sometimes for months. I can actually close my eyes and call it up. One of my favorite pieces of writing about this phenomenon comes from a man named David James Duncan, who wrote one of my favorite books, which is called The River Why. It's actually a book about fishing. If you love to fish, you should check this book out. The River Why. I love this passage from an interview that Duncan gave, in which he described the way that living his whole life next to rivers and creeks affected him. In 45 years, he wrote, a river grinds millions of rocks into sand and devours a forest's worth of trees, turning them into nutrients, life forms, dead forms, soil, nothingness. I wouldn't be the same without rivers. They have turned me into someone I wouldn't be without them, and I didn't create this someone. Rivers did. He goes on to say that rivers teach without teaching, and here's how. They bring you in the springtime in the presence of inanimate matter that says not a word as it is transformed into animate matter, and in the autumn into the presence of animate matter that says not a word as it grows inanimate. A life spent in the presence of reversible death, and life, the presence of ceaseless hallucinogenic flow. When you watch all life disappear, appear, and then disappear again, year in and year out, it dawns on you that you too appeared and will disappear and reappear. You perceive the weave of sacrifices that make up not just a food chain, but a universe. From a sun devouring 4 million tons of itself per second to enliven the earth, to oceans vaporizing to make clouds, snow melting to make rivers, rivers flowing to make flora, make fauna, make mayflies that make trout, that feed not just the bodies, but the souls of fly fishers. For Duncan and for me as well, time spent in nature has given me a particular perspective about life, death, meaning, and my place in the world. In these challenging times, here are some of the lessons that I am recalling. All things, pleasant and unpleasant, come to an end. Each difficult struggle, including this one, offers us gifts if we look for them. Every one of my very important tasks and meetings can wait, and the vast number of my personal problems are insignificant in the scope of time. Here's the most important one. The very, very best thing I can do today is to do something kind for someone else. Loving each other, caring for each other, that is our most vital work. This is the wisdom I see reflected back when I look into the mirror of nature. I know from being with you for just a few months that some of you have that same connection with nature. And I'd love to hear what you've learned from nature, if you'd like to share with me sometime. I'm going to end my message today with a prayer that comes from our own hymn book, which is a perfect example of the kind of wisdom the natural world teaches us. It comes from the Ute, a First Nations tribe. Earth, teach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me humility as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth, teach me caring as the mother who secures her young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain. Amen. May it be so.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, for our lives for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blooming hills of earth.
Our closing words this morning come from the poet Lynn Unger from her piece called Camel Lilies. Consider the lilies of the field, the blue banks of camas opening into acres of sky along the road. Would the longing to lie down and be washed by that beauty abate if you knew their youthfulness? How the natives ground their bulbs into flower, how the settlers' hogs uprooted them, grunting in gleeful oblivion as the flowers fell. And you, what of your rushed and useful life? Imagine setting it all down, papers, plans, appointments, everything, and leaving only a note. Gone to the fields to be lovely, be back when I'm through blooming. Even now, unneeded and uneaten, the camel lilies gaze out above the grass from their tender blue eyes. Even in sleep, your life will shine. Make no mistake. Of course, your work will always matter. Yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Thank you for joining us today for this service. In the week to come, be well, be safe, and remember that sheltering in place is a gift of love to all of us. Blessed be.